Hello and a warm welcome to everyone. This is Kiran Shetty and welcome to 4CFT Edu Skills. Yes, it's been a very long time, but the gap was well used to work on what we were talking all about, teaching for the 21st century. We'll be very excited to know that we have brought in a lot of new content. And as it's summer holidays, and a lot of parents have been contacting us about sessions, especially in reading for the summer, we thought we should bring out a video specifically where we are talking about how reading helps and lots of other things. To join me in this conversation, it's my pleasure to invite a dear friend and a colleague, Kiran Kingsellers. Karen has done many things. She wears many hats and successfully too. And what I love about Karen is her unique approach towards learning and teaching. She has done multitudinal qualifications. We'll drop a detailed link about it in our chat. And at the same time, she's also teaching in a very prestigious school at Nasik called Ashoka International School. She, of course, heads the English department, and I think I'm selling her short. She does a lot of things. She's also parent to two lovely kids. One of the kid is attending regular school, and the other one she has been homeschooling with. And reasons for that we'll discuss later. But right now, warm welcome to Karen. So Karen, as I was talking that this is summertime and a lot of parents are about trying out activities which will engage their little ones in the summertime. And one of the very popular activities is reading.
Yes.
Okay? So they want to know if their kids are young enough, what is the correct time to start reading, how do they go about? And if the child is older, they want to know whether the child is up to mark in his reading skills, his or her reading skills. And at the same time, how do we introduce reading to somebody who's a screen addict, like we all are? So we will be talking about all these things. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about what language skills are. So well, like the song says, let's start from the very beginning.
Correct.
So reading is a very important language skills. But let's now discuss whether there's a hierarchy to learning language skills. And what is your opinion about what comes first in the chicken and the egg battle?
Okay. So I would say that we're all born into a language, right? And so if what is better known is it's called the L1. Everyone's talking about L1 and L2 and L3 and so on and so forth. So I would say that we as Indians, I know Kiran, you've said this before, we are lucky, right? So we are born into families where we just don't have one language that is being spoken, but multiple languages being spoken. So, in short, we're bilingual and trilingual, and I would say that that is something that we should really be cherishing. Yeah. So what's your opinion about that?
I think I assertively have been saying this for quite some time.
Yes.
So we forget our gifts. Indians are natural polyglots. And for people who do not know what it means is mastery over more than 3 to 4 languages, and not just sometimes in speaking and listening, it's also about reading and writing. And because of our schooling system mostly being, trilingual, what with English and regional language and the national language, wherever we are, and then by environment, the languages that the child or we all have picked up, talking to our friends, their families, and we are such a diverse culture. So just so that people understand the L1, the language one is the language that you start speaking when you start speaking.
Yes.
And that L1 is then what most cases should be your mother tongue.
Yes.
Okay, in most cases. Why am I saying why this qualifier about the mother tongue? Because what we were discussing very recently is more and more urban families, specifically in metros, have started talking to the child completely in a particular language because it will help them in school, whereby losing their command or their, the opportunity to introduce more languages, especially their mother tongue, to the child. And believe me, it's like jack of all, master of none kind of scenario with because of that approach. This is my personal opinion. But moving on, if we are talking about L1, what about reading then? How does that fit in? And what would you say about the listening, about the hierarchy of language learning, if at all, if there is?
So I would say the first thing that we need to get good at is listening. Because I think about it. When we are babies, and then when the baby starts speaking, you said that is when actually the whole process starts. Your L1 begins. So how does the child start speaking? It's because the child has been listening ever since its infancy, or ever since its infant stage, right? Or even probably not probably, but I would say
Yes, we have our facts right, and the
yes.
scientific studies back that the listening as a fetus, it starts way early, when you are in your mother's womb, technically.
Yes, exactly. So, and through listening is where you pick up on the different nuances of a language. So the various idiomatic expressions, even the response cries, or pronunciation, how to connect. So the collocations that come in. So listening is something that we cannot undermine. And therefore, I would say that listening is first in the hierarchy.
So any language learning, or is it only in your L1 or your
Any
mother tongue?
language learning. Any language learning.
So that's where I was waiting for, because we are going to talk about that a little in a few minutes. But when we're talking that listening, see, personally, I feel that there is no input, there's limited output.
That's right.
So by the time an average child starts speaking, he's around 1.5, 2. After the initial babble, the sentence structure, so we can like generalize by saying that a 2-year-old is, he's connecting the correct sentence structure and
Yeah.
expressing himself or demanding attention or whatever we want to call it. But now we are talking about reading as a skill. And when then we are talking, so if listening is first, and then now we have also, let's state it, that followed by speaking. What happens when we, in a school scenario, or the first exposure to a formal learning atmosphere, and we're talking about English as a language, do we really start with listening and speaking?
No, we don't. And that is really sad to say that the first, the importance is given mainly to writing, right? So even before you can recognize the letters of an alphabet, or even the sounds, how does the letter sound? You're forced to write. Before the motor skills are even strong enough, are built in a child, we are already forcing them to write, and I feel that is really sad. So we need to change that.
I'm sorry, but just extend a little bit more on this fact. So when our fine motor skills, that is these fingers of ours, okay, they are not fully formed with the bone structure till the child is at least 6 and plus.
Yes.
So when a young child who's not even, whose bones are not developed, whose muscles, etc., within all the finer structures not developed, is forced, no matter how, whether you're using a thick crayon or a fat crayon or whatever your tools you're using, we are focused more on their look, and how many of our pre-writing exercises you do, it's just not the right thing at the right time. Okay, but that's not the ideal scenario. Most of the parents work under pressure because they need to be good enough for the school admissions. Schools have their very strict, how do I say, and unless, because everything
Curriculums.
comes, yeah, curriculum, they have their methodology. And even when they say we do a play way, most of the time, what parents expect is my child is not writing. Any school who's trying to, do the things in the, even if they attempt, the first thing that they get a backlash is my child is not writing. My neighbor's child writes a paragraph when he's three, XYZ. So now when we are talking about these, and we have established, okay, we take some other session where we talk about the reading, writing modalities, but I want to focus more on reading.
Right.
And let's say we've established listening. So let's elaborate on listening now as a skill. Why do you think listening as a skill is not developed, and how does it impact our socio-cultural behavior in the longer run as you grow? What happens to us?
I think, when you go to see, research says that when we communicate, 50 to 60% of the time we are listening, and which means that's literally half of the time that we are communicating, we are listening. And if we do not inculcate that habit from the very beginning, we will not be effective communicators. So I would say that the reason why we are so in tune with our L1 from the time that we're babies is because when you're a baby, you can't speak. You're just babbling, you're making sounds. And most of the time, you're just observing what's happening around. You're listening to people speaking in your background. And therefore, you are able to become an effective communicator in your L1. Okay, but again, having said that, I think, like you said, we are not really paying attention to some of the our mother tongue that we are growing into. So that again, since that's not happening, eventually in time that L1 fades off, right? Even probably the L2, if you have that with you. So coming back to listening, so that's why I would say that because of ignoring this aspect, this particular skill that we are supposed to develop, we ignore it. And therefore, as we grow older, that listening becomes lesser. We start to listen less, and we want to, as adults, we want to just jump into conversations and speak more.
Make our presence felt.
Yes. And so therefore, that's where all the miscommunication starts. And then we aren't able to deal with situations or conflicts, relationships are not
so this
stronger.
Is something directly connecting to 21st century skills as enumerated.
Absolutely.
That we are talking about interpersonal skills being affected. We are talking about our skills of negotiation, persuasion. Everything depends on your empathetic listening to someone.
Yes, absolutely.
And that empathy is missing in today's interactions.
Absolutely.
And because we are not allowing the kids, whether it's in the home atmosphere or there's a constant pressure to speak.
Yes.
I'm amazed at people who engage in public speaking at young age, below 10 and they are attending a public speaking class. And I'm very amazed. So before we can even start walking, we want to do the Olympics. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so again, because see, again, these are very selling terms in today's parent body, okay? Creative writing, public speaking, communication skills. And if you see the scientific understanding or the academic understanding of these skill sets, they are definitely not correlating to the current age. Like it's not with age that they are, certain skills. Like before you can even construct your own sentence correctly in the language that we are talking about, you want a creative output.
Yes. Which is really sad.
And not only that, you want to perform that output where
Very
public speaking comes about. And so listening as an empathetic tool for good interpersonal relationships, or to understand what is being said so that you can process and then speak, is a skill that must be developed way early. I think it should start as early as you can. Even if
Yes.
you are patiently listening to your child's babble, the child is confident that there's a listener,
Correct.
and he will also learn that skill from the parent or the teacher. And when I'm saying babbling, I'm literally meaning babbling in the school at class at home environment. And as the child tries to put together a sentence, instead of rushing in to correct his grammar or his
Yes.
gender, and God knows,
Which we, I think most of us teachers are
it's
guilty
everywhere.
of.
Yeah, we all, I think that was our conditioning. I think we know, like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, do it. You have to recoup and you have to do it better. But having said that, when we talk about listening and so important,
Right.
then when we come to speaking, again, there's a structured pattern. We want them to memorize and recite. We want them to give a scripted presentation. And that therein, because the language is not evolving naturally, there is a disconnect.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's naturally, because otherwise our 2-year-olds wouldn't be using sarcasm in L1.
Yes, that's
So
right.
when, that's the test of the language. So if your child can use sarcasm in whichever language, he's proficient in that language. So if he's using sarcasm, that's your tool, okay? That means he's cracking a joke, he's using, see, these are the little, how do I say, little developmental blocks you should understand when it comes to language learning.
Yes.
And let's then talk about reading, for which we have decided to connect. And so let's talk about what's the right age to start reading to your kid, and when should we do it, and how should we do it, or should we pack them off to the nearest class that claims to conduct reading sessions and make you love the written word?
I would say, so personally, what I have tried and tested is, you introduced me as a parent of 2 children, and I have read to my kids when I was pregnant with them. So I would say that's when reading should start. Because I have seen it, because of that, process that I began with them. When they were born, I would notice this twinkle in their eye if I read the same thing to them again. So there was a connection that they had already made. And then when they could start speaking, they would tell me the same story. And sometimes even they knew it word to word.
Wow.
So I have seen that happen. I mean, I first tried it with my first kid, and then of course I saw it work, so tried it with the second one.
You always vice versa with the second one.
Yes. So so it really begins, I think, as soon as you know that you're going to have a baby, you start reading to them. And
And for those of you who missed that boat, how soon can you start reading?
it's never too late. Yes,
That-
but then of course the expectation shouldn't be that. So when you're sitting and you're reading to your child, you don't expect them to read along with you. It
Mhm.
should just be that you are reading to them so that they're listening, because you see, again, we're talking about listening being a very important skill. So allowing them to listen, to absorb what you're
Mm.
sharing with them, and probably creating those images in their mind as you read to them,
Hmm.
um, through the stories that you're reading. So that's a very important process for them before they begin to read
On their own.
on their
On
own.
their own. When they curl up with the book, and that concept of
Yes.
curling up with the book and the tactile, sensory exploration with the pages, etc. Till that part.
Yes.
Do you think that a parent should have a fixed routine about reading, just like the one we have about brushing our teeth and having their food? We have set timetables. What about reading? When do we push that part of it? It should be a part of their daily routine.
I would say yes, because it's it also is a wonderful time to really bond with your child. So children, and especially younger children, they love to have a fixed routine. So, and they feel a little comfortable when you have a routine for them. So just like brushing your teeth at a particular time or giving them their meals at a particular time. So it would be nice to set in some reading time as well.
Mhm.
It could be any time. It could be bedtime. It could be in the afternoon when you've had your lunch, or
And what
anytime.
in today's world, there is so much of late nights. It's like become a routine.
Hmm.
Earlier, the bedtimes were pretty early because of the
Yeah.
work schedule or because of the internet and OTT platforms. We find a lot of children, for whatever reason, being staying way past an ideal bedtime.
Hmm.
So personally, I always feel that whenever you have decided, maybe it's a homemaker, maybe it's a very rushed working mother, the time that you would, even if it's 15 minutes, if you know you are going to be relaxed and
Yeah.
the child is going to be quieter, maybe that, even if it means you blend that and then fix up a routine about, um, how do I say, reading to the child in the initial stages. One more thing I would like to, a lot of parents hate being interrupted when they're reading to their child. It's like they are performing a task. But then you're handling a curious youngster, okay?
Hmm.
Pat yourself on the back. If your child is asking you questions, that means he's got a brain and it is functioning.
That's right.
See,
And actually, reading as a process also is a very active process. It doesn't have to be passive.
doesn't
So,
have to be static like that, okay? You
yeah,
don't have to be like, okay, in a zombie state.
yeah. So it would
What
be
else?
nice, in fact, to have your child asking you questions. You also ask some questions. Make it more fun that way.
And maybe do some extensions after you realize that the child really loves this and he's slowly picking up. Maybe extending that, okay?
Yes.
We will do a detailed thing about how storytelling can be, conducted with young children and with a different age group. But right now, we want to focus on the reading skill per se. So we are just focused on how the reading feel should be there, because unless you enjoy something, you're never going to do it, no matter how expensive the book you bought for your child.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
another thing. A lot of people feel that buying expensive books, it becomes the child's duties. This is especially for the older kids. Okay, the 7+, 8+ children, 8 upwards. I've heard a lot of mothers telling me, "Oh, but I bought so many books for him. He doesn't read. She doesn't read." What do you? How do you counter that kind of an argument?
I would first ask the parent if they are also spending time reading.
Uh,
So, because your child emulates you, and if you're going to be busy on your cell phones or watching television and being so caught up with what you do every day, that and you're not giving yourself that time to read, how would you expect your child to do the same? So it starts from you.
being a role model. So practicing before we start preaching.
Yes, yes. And I strongly believe in that.
Yeah. And in my personal opinion, especially when my son was growing up, I ensured there were books very accessible to him. I never put them up in the cupboards, etc. They were
Hmm.
always very, if he, when he was crawling or when he was, tall enough to walk or whatever, they were always within his reach.
Absolutely.
And there was something else I did, I don't know, but I picked up this trick from a friend of mine who had created stamps. It was a
Hmm.
proper rubber stamp missing from the library of Chirag Vatsha. That was mine. So every book. So again, sense of ownership. So
Yes.
these are my books, and and I need to take care of them. And because if a parent is handling the book as precious cargo,
Hmm.
gently like you handle your expensive jewelry, with that
Yes.
much of love and affection, with a smile on your face, I'm sure children would also equally treat their books with respect.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, to talk more about what you just said. So that's again something that I've done for my kids. So we have a bookshelf. So when my kids were shorter, smaller, so the books that I would say, okay, this is your shelf, so they could just go pull out a book and read, and
Mhm.
my books would be on the higher shelves.
Hmm.
I would say yes, so that's mommy's books or daddy's books, so that they know, oh, okay, so these people have books too. Right? So they know that even we're reading. And secondly, I write their name on the book and also a little note for them. So they know that, oh, okay, when did I get this book? So the date, and then who's given it to them. So even if it's a relative who wants to gift a book, I make them do the same thing. As you write a little note, write the date.
That's so
So
precious, because it suddenly becomes a very precious memory, because down the line when they grow up, they're going to read that little note
yes,
with,
yes,
yeah, with a lot of lovely memory attached, because you know the 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 smell of a library, the way we used to, or we have all grown up.
yes,
It's sad that I'm not against digitization. We run a company which is into digital learning, but at the same time, I think we still must and should encourage our children to have the tactile feel of a book in the hand.
yes.
Uh,
There is some research that has been done about this, saying that, of course, yes, we are living in a digitized world right now, and there are a lot of ebooks. I mean, it's a trend to read ebooks, but reading printed books actually helps to uh, improve sleep as well as your memory.
mhm.
So I think that we should, while of course we are going the digital way, we should also teach our children to sometimes spend time with a hard copy, with the printed book. Yeah.
And it could be, even if it is two books a month, which you have bought, in the physical form, where they
Mhm.
do have their Kindle accounts and whatever you all want to, enrich their library with. I'm
Mhm.
sure it will, I think reading makes, there is a lot of literature, there are lots of videos that readers are leaders and whatever. You can flip that saying, whatever. But the fact is, reading connects you to, it's like your cerebral connect to the world.
Yes.
And I also feel it's a very meditative activity if done correctly.
Yes. Yes.
Because you
Absolutely.
spend time with yourself. Because when we were growing up, when we were not, everything was not scripted for us. There were, if we were imagining the Enid Blyton characters, etc. Nobody went out of their homes, but we were all in the castles and the different parts of the world because of the characters that we were reading about.
Yes. True.
And those were personal experiences. Those were very intimate kind of understanding of the setting, the characters, their emotions, the language. So I think reading is the best gift that you can give your child. The earlier you begin is the best. But if you don't, then the time you started is a good enough time, I feel. So
Yes.
we always say that the proof of the pudding is in tasting it.
Yes. In the
So
pie.
that would lead me to invite my two precious guests, Kafira and Ethan.
Yes.
These gems are also Kingsellers and they are Karen's babies. And
Come, Leela.
if they can join in, I'm going to
Sure.
ask them how did they enjoy reading as a child and what do they think about reading as an activity? Hi, Miss Kafira.
And
Hello.
that's it.
Hi, Ethan.
So I
So
think
we
we
talk,
can start
yeah,
with Safira first because
of course,
she's the
of
older
course.
one.
Older one. Okay. So we'll
Yeah.
be following hierarchy over. Okay. So now that you passed your high school diploma and now you are a legal adult, I
Yeah.
would like you to in a very precise, but give us a few tips about your reading journey. How do you remember? What do you remember as a child? The reading as an activity. Do you want to call it an activity, or was it something that you? Uh,
Um, it was actually I like the same joy that I find in watching a movie. I used to find in reading. Maybe now, like as I get older, the level of the books that I read maybe they take a longer period of time. But when I was younger, definitely felt like watching a cartoon. The same feeling. So
but do you remember any specific? How do I say? Activity that your mother did so that you started to read.
yeah, so I think that what my mom would do is then this is from like I can't even remember when it started. It must have been a really long time back. But she would always be reading to me. So she never even if I didn't have to ask her, she would by herself come with a book and be like, "Do you want me to tell you a story?" I would be so excited all the time. And we actually had a character that she created. It was a worm. And every night she would come to continue the story with me. So I don't know how long we did that for, like six, seven
Very long
years.
time. Yeah.
It was. So I guess that with my mom reading to me herself, like she didn't ever come and force me to read. It was she made it a very enjoyable activity. It felt more like I could do it when I wanted. So that definitely encouraged me to read more.
And do you still read, or do
I
you think
do.
reading from a screen is very easy because it's available and you can download any book? And
Uh,
what do you feel about that part? Because you're a young adult with, I'm sure, the digital media has just exploded on us, and we don't know how to process everything.
I think that there are two different feelings. Like, of course, reading from a book, like a physical book, is more. It feels more important. But I think that accessibility wise, I like digitally reading because I can get a lot, like a bigger variety of books, and I don't necessarily have to pay all the time. So, like for some bigger books, especially hardcover, they're expensive now to buy because they're becoming more rare. They're more expensive to buy, but online, I think I can get like a bigger variety of books.
So we need to treasure all our hard copies that we have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I think very soon we are not going to get hard copies of, or they
yeah.
are going to be coming at a premium, and rightly because we chopped all the trees and not always for the books.
It's becoming like an
A lot of
antique,
other things. So
actually.
yes, that's wonderful because see, you also intern with us, you work with us, and as a digital medium, and now we are looking at very young children. When I'm talking about 3+, if there was one tip you want to give someone who is a young kid, okay, about reading, what would that tip be?
It would be that read things that you like. Don't force yourself to read books just because everybody says that, oh, this book is so important, you need to read it. Read something that you're interested in because you feel like reading it. It won't feel like a chore that you have to read. I think that's a very
That's
important.
lovely because see, most of the time, when do we not like reading is when it becomes an activity or we
Yeah.
becomes a chore or it becomes like, oh, now I have to do this. So you're not
They
enjoying.
don't like to do it when they feel like they have to do it. When they feel like it's their choice, then I think that's
That's
the
wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you,
It's like in
Kafira.
school when we tell the kids, okay, no, so it's exams are
Because
nearing now.
then
Read your
they
text.
start
Read your text.
associating it as a task. They find it like an academic task. Okay, in the school, I'm reading a book, and now I have to write a review, or I have to write a critical appreciation of something, or I have to write for. So at home, I think that it shouldn't be okay. Tell me what you have read now. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree. That's it.
That kind of interrogation shouldn't come from a parent, at least, rather laugh about it or have fun. See, the
Yeah.
kind of games that you mentioned, your mother she created a character. So these are the little memories. I'm thinking this is the joy part of it where you would reach out for a book. Yes.
Yes.
So now let's invite Mr. Ethan. Hello.
Hello.
So how about Ethan? What is your experience with reading and everything? Hmm.
Actually, I enjoy reading a lot, but I take like a lot of time to finish my books.
Okay.
I like to go page by page, but I never leave it. Like even for like 6 months, I'll still complete the book.
And do you
So
find your mama irritated that you're not finishing the book, or she's okay with your slow pace?
no, she's fine. She
I'm
likes she
asking, this is not for your mama. This is for everybody's mama. That you don't have to put a deadline on finishing anything.
she's fine as
Yeah,
long
she's
as I'm
fine.
reading.
You're certified, huh? You're fine.
She's very relaxed about that. That's why I enjoy reading a lot. And I take many books at a time. Like,
So you are reading multiple books at the same time. You start them multiple, and you can keep track of the story, even if it is.
yes, meaning it's a little hard, but I'll take like separate days to read each book.
Okay. But that's amazing because not everybody manages to do that. Ethan and Karen have read for us, and there's a lovely video, and we are going to drop that link. And it's got already 700 views, and there's a lovely step by step about how to read to a young child. I think Ethan is, of course, now a grown man, but he's the same little boy in that video, okay, 3 years ago. So, boys and girls, do you think there are, in your friend circle or whatever, do you feel that they're attracted to different kinds of books, or it's age related? Like, what about your friends who are girls and boys? Do they read the same kind of books?
Everybody has their own genres that they like. So it can't really be by gender or age. Like I can read a book for younger ages. It doesn't matter that way.
So you think it's a personal choice? You need not.
Yes.
Not that if I'm a boy, then I need to read a certain kind of books, or if I'm a girl, then I need to read certain kind of books. It's nothing like that, according to you.
But of course, like some books are a little advanced for like if I'm a 10-year-old, I can't read books that adults are reading.
Absolutely. Again, see, that again depends on your pace and where you are in your reading journey. Yes, I'm
Yes.
sure about that. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Itu. That's great. Thank you, Kafira. Thank you, Ethan.
Yes.
And I'm coming back to Karen. So, Karen, how do we end this? What are your tips? Just 3 tips for parents and with young children, especially with children who are below the age of 8, and they are starting their reading journey. Give me 3 tips, please, for all the parents and teachers who are going to watch this video.
So I would say the first step is that make some time every day from your busy schedule, because I think as you know the years are passing by, and we have become very busy, unlike how it was earlier. So you really have to make that time in your schedule and say that yes, I'm going to dedicate, say even if you dedicate 15 minutes to just reading you and to your child, that's good enough. So your child also will look forward to that time, and it becomes habit. And of course, as you know, I mean, it takes 21 days to form a habit. So definitely, if you make an effort, it will happen. Secondly, I would say that, like my daughter Kafira mentioned earlier, allow your child to choose the book. So give them some options, and then let them choose. Don't decide which books they should read and which books they shouldn't. So let's say if your child decides, okay, to pick a book that belongs to you. Maybe your child's curious. So don't say that, no, this book is not meant for you. You can pick up the book. You can start reading. Eventually, your child may just say, okay, that's too much for me. But allow that curiosity to happen. So that's my second tip. And the third one, I would say, is improve on your expressions when you read. So don't just go, because then that would really, it would get anybody bored, even your own self. If you listen to your own self and you're monotonous when you're reading, so obviously it's not then fun. Your child may tell you, okay, I think I can read on my own. So I would say that you need to also work on your reading skills. How to bring that book alive to your child.
How to emote, rather.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And so to this, I'm going to just add that children love repetition. Sometimes as an adult, we get bored, but children love it.
Yes.
So please, if your child is repeatedly telling you to read a story, don't shush him or her.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing. They love it, especially younger children. I've seen that specifically with very young children. They love that routine. They love the sound. They love.
So that's what used to happen with both my kids. And they would ask me to read the story 10 times. I remember reading a story almost, I think, 15 to 20 times once, the same story. And I must say, yes, I mean, I'm no saint, and I did there was a time when I'd be like, I have to read that story again. So what I would do is that when I had guests or a relative, I'd say, here, why don't you read this book to my child?
Oh, delegating. Wonderful.
Yes, yeah. So you see, so you're not telling your child I can't read, but they get another, a completely different way in which that story is told.
And it's a wonderful bonding exercise.
Yes.
Because I remember when from the age 1 to the age 3, my son was obsessed with a storybook called Sonali and the Crow. It had 10 lines. And I would go cross-eyed. And I still cherish that book. He's 32, and we have a big laugh about Sonali and a crow. And that's when I said repetition. I don't know, it probably soothes them. It's it's a very therapeutic kind of a soothing thing to go back to the same story with the same character, the way we read out to them and the tone of our voice. The proximity, something which we miss out, especially with younger children, is the way we read to them, the distance, the way we position ourselves and them, and it's not a very formal sit on a chair and I'll read out to, even that is fine, but the physical proximity, like if you're closed in a chair or with the bed and you're reading out to the child before his sleep time or nap, whatever. I think that's also a very wonderful bonding exercise.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, wonderful. So unless you want to add something, I'm going to thank you so much for doing this with me. I hope the parents and the teachers or whoever is listening on to and going to watch this video will gain from this exercise. And I think we must continue to talk a little bit more about language skills, because there's so much of misinformation sometimes, and parents get very anxious, and rightly so, because there is hardly anyone telling them about this in their, so we will do a lot more on language skills and specifically, picking each skill and then talking more about it. So thank you so much, Karen.
You're
See
most
you.
welcome. I just have one small tip.
Yes.
I remembered, if I can, I know that we are
Of course,
ending
you
this
should.
talk, but I
Please.
just remembered that, so when my daughter was young and my son too, like babies, so I wouldn't want to be, worried about the fact that they destroy a book. So what I did was I invested in cloth books,
Okay.
so they can do what they want with it, and then you can even wash it, so it's hygienic for them to use, and even if they were to nibble on it, it would be okay. But they still able, I mean, you're still encouraging them to read, and then slowly we moved on to those hardboard books, and then we
And
progressed.
parents are lucky today, because of the resources and the material, the kind of material. When we were like, it's been a long time, but I've seen a lot of good material. Yes, of course, they're tad expensive. Maybe you can join a toy or a library where these books can be circulated. But that's wonderful, these, again, the texture of the book changes.
Yes.
So it's your sensory motor skills getting developed.
Yes.
And you're connecting so many things happening together. Thank you. That was good. You put in that tip. So
Okay.
I'm hoping that we do more of these videos for everyone and see
Sure.
you soon. Thank you so
It was
much.
a pleasure speaking with you too, Kiran.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.